Yes, Mataji.
All right. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet. Shinvatam Swakatha Krishna Punyashravana Kirtana Hridyantasto Hyabhadrani Vidhunoti Suhrit Sadam Nastyaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Om Atnanatimmirandhasya Nananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yadkripa Tvamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. So today we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 17, verse 35. Suta Uvacha Parikshitaivam Adishta Sakalirjatavapatu Tam Udyatasim Ade Ahedam Dandapanim Mivodyatam. Suta Uvacha Parikshitaivam Adishta Sakalirjatavapatu Tam Udyatasim Ahedam Dandapanim Mivodyatam. Suta Uvacha Parikshitaivam Adishta Sakalirjadava Vepatu Tam Udyatasam Ahedam Dandapanim Mivodyatam. Suta Uvacha, Sri Suta Goswami said, Parikshita, by Maharaj Parikshit, Evam, thus, Adishta, being ordered, Saha, he, Kali, the personality of Kali, Jata, there was, Vepatu, trembling, Tam, him, Udyata, raised, Asim, sword, Aha, said, Idam, thus, Dandapanim, Yamaraja, the personality of death, Iva, like, Udyatam, almost ready. Sri Suta Goswami said, the personality of Kali, thus being ordered by Maharaj Parikshit, began to tremble in fear. Seeing the king before him like Yamaraj, ready to kill him, Kali spoke to the king as follows. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The king was ready to kill the personality of Kali at once, as soon as he disobeyed his order. Otherwise, the king had no objection to allowing him to prolong his life. The personality of Kali also, after attempting to get rid of the punishment in various ways, decided that he must surrender unto him, and thus he began to tremble in fear of his life. The king or the executive head must be so strong as to stand before the personality of Kali like the personality of death, Yamaraj. The king's order must be obeyed. Otherwise, the culprit's life is in risk. That is the way to rule the personalities of Kali who create a disturbance in the normal life of the state citizens. Om Atnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So we are in this chapter, in this particular section, dealing with Maharaj Parikshit, having observed how Kali was ill-treating the bull and the cow, and he was ready to take action immediately on the spot. And Kali surrenders. And at this point, Maharaja Parikshit is asking Kali to leave his kingdom. And the reason being that irreligion cannot stand in Maharaja Parikshit's kingdom. And so he's asking Kali to leave because there cannot be any adharma. So Kali cannot remain in his kingdom. And this verse 35, the translation, thus being ordered by Parikshit, who was like Yamaraj with a raised sword, ready to kill him, Kali is trembling with fear, and he spoke. So the next section, Maharaja Parikshit will give five places of residence to Kali out of his compassion. And also there is reasons behind that. So I thought I'll just very briefly focus on what is particularly happening in this context, and maybe if time permits, to speak something about how the living entity out of ignorance gets entangled in this situation, and how in the situations that we find ourselves in this age of Kali, and how Krishna himself has given us a solution to get out of that. But unfortunately, many times, we don't pay attention to details, and as a result, we get more and more entangled. So with sword in hand, Maharaja Parikshit is giving an explanation for why he is executing this particular, he making the decision what to do. Kali has already surrendered, and Maharaj Parikshit explains why he cannot remain in his kingdom. It is a bit of a dilemma for him, because here is a person who has surrendered. On the one side, he needs to be protected because king is a follower of religious principles, and a surrendered person needs protection. But on the other hand, Kali is irreligion personified, and there is every reason to punish him as well. So compassion on one side and punishment on the other. So this is the dilemma. And in Kali Yuga, we all face this dilemma because that's the nature of Kali Yuga. And in the case of Maharaja Parikshit, he being such a qualified Kshatriya, he should act strong and on the spot. He should be prepared to act on the spot, not delay the justice. So previous to this, in the previous verse, it is stated that in all such sacrifices, only Supreme Lord is worshipped. He is the soul of all worshipable deities, existing inside and out, and bestows welfare to the worshipper. So this verse really explains, the previous one, explains the relationship of religious sacrifices and worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is a very, very important philosophical understanding. And those who do not understand religious principles, they won't be able to fix their minds upon the Supreme Lord. They may perform sacrifices, worship, etc. But if it is done without the proper understanding that the ultimate beneficiary is Krishna, they cannot make any spiritual progress. So an example like this is seen, just to give an example, in the Caribbean islands, Guyana, Trinidad, etc. I have seen, like in front of the homes, they put up long bamboo poles, bamboo sticks on which there are multicolored flags. And each flag is indicative of that the family has done a particular worship of either Ganesh, or they have done a puja for Varuna or Indra or something like that. So various demigods are worshipped, and they put up a flag indicating this has been done. And so what happens is there are completely unqualified pujaris who go around and conduct these sacrifices, and equally unqualified recipients. And as a result, nobody is a beneficiary, neither the person who conducts the sacrifice nor the person who arranges that. So basically what happens is these pujaris, they are able to look at these flags and they can say that this home has done Ganesh worship or some other demigod worship, but this home needs one more, some other worship. And so they go and perform this. Both the person who is performing and the one who is arranging, neither one are in knowledge. And as a result, this leads to degradation. And so this is what was said previously. So in Kali Yuga, this is what the nature of Kali Yuga is, such that people don't fully understand what is to be done, how it is to be done, what is the purpose. So in this verse, in the current verse, you can see Maharaja Parikshit is very strong. So he was so powerful that he could face thousands of warriors single-handedly. No wonder Kali was trembling in fear. A king like that has to be worshipped by all. Why? Because he is a true representative of the Supreme Lord. And naturally, such Kshatriyas are very, very strong because they can make quick decisions. They don't need a jury. They don't need a court. They don't need a bunch of people to help to make these decisions. Unlike what we see in the present day system. I was hearing one of His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj's classes. Maharaj was mentioning about a court case involving a big time sports person who in private even admitted that he killed his wife. But when it went to court, the lawyers twisted the whole story and misrepresenting, and the whole jury, again, a bunch of people who are equally ignorant, they are listening to all these things. And after some 8 years or something of 8 months of deliberation, almost like 1 year, and at the end of it, this person was acquitted. And so this tells the kind of justice system that we have at this point of time. And the administrators are not courageous like Maharaj Parikshit, and they are not capable of making any correct or right decisions on the spot. So all these things are indications of the age of Kali, the unqualified persons and unqualified people who are guiding a bunch of unqualified others. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that where there is light, there cannot be any darkness. So where there is Krishna, there cannot be any darkness. Illusion cannot exist where there is Krishna. So in this age of Kali, we can say the whole world is cast in an abyss of darkness. And what is that abyss of darkness? This darkness really takes the form of mass propaganda. And what is the propaganda? The propaganda is really to divert human attentions away from worship of the Supreme Lord. Because anything and everything that takes our attention away from the Supreme Lord, you can say that is a propaganda. And so there are so many distractions, including the internet and the telephone and everything else. And anything and everything captures our attention. Nothing captures our attention to direct us towards Krishna. So this is the situation of Kali Yuga. So there is a reference given in Padma Purana, which says, Dasa Buddho Harer Eva Nanya Saiva Kadachana. Dasa Buddho Harer Eva Nanya Saiva Kadachana. The remembrance that we, the living entities, are, what are we? We are living entities, or Jiva. The meaning of this sentence is, Jiva is the servant of Hari and never anyone else. Jiva is the servant of Hari and never of anyone else. I will repeat it. It is Jiva is the servant of Hari and never of anyone else. But if we look our lives, we can see we are always serving somebody or other. In fact, King Kulasekhara's prayers, he says, my dear Lord, I have given up your service and I'm serving these people who are like masters of a small village or something. So Dasa Buddho Harir Eva Nanyaskya Kadachana, Padma Purana's statement, this is so true. And yet in Kali Yuga, because of these kind of diversions, human society's attention is taken away from that and we all end up serving some insignificant living entities who rule our lives. So the greatest problem then begins by forgetfulness of Krishna, which we have heard a million times. And the current situation in Kali Yuga is such that such opportunities, or let us say that Kali Yuga situation is such that we can be diverted very easily. Plenty of opportunities to look other way from Krishna, that is everywhere, that is present everywhere. So even though we, the living entities, have landed in this material existence, and because of our ignorance from time immemorial, everybody is searching for some happiness, and it is by our own free will that we are entangling ourselves in these karmic situations. So in every situation, we determine, it is us who determine how we respond and react to every situation in life. This is so very important to carefully introspect and think about it. How we respond and react to every situation in life, it determines how we entangle ourselves more and more and more. And so that every action, there is a corresponding reaction, and we think, we act, and we create a deeper reaction, and our own reactions and these reactions bind us deeper and deeper and deeper. So in this way, we are paving the future for our own soul. Future destiny of our soul is in our own hands. And the laws of material nature, which is the laws of God, is going to happen here. Any decision we make, every action which has a reaction, it is going to be there, because the laws of nature are irrefutable, and that is the nature of it. And so we have the freedom to choose, and once we choose, we have to anticipate the reactions to come. We have nobody to blame but ourselves. So the most important thing we have to remember is, how do we respond to any situation in life? We can act piously, we can act with tolerance, we can act with patience, and we can act with the standards of morality. And we can act in the interest of others. This is the point I wanted to bring in a reference. What Krishna says, Kapila Dev's instructions to Devahuti. I would love to read that to you, which clearly points out why in human form of life, the highest level, highest state of the development of consciousness is when one reaches that position of completely accepting the fact that I am the servant of Krishna. I am here to serve him for the simple purpose of serving him, not with any ulterior motive. That is the highest development. Kapila Dev teaches that to Devahuti. So what happens is that by our own choice, we entangle ourselves, and ultimately, we have to understand that when we act in the mode of goodness, we have great benefit. But we also know one has to even transcend the mode of goodness. One has to even transcend, because even mode of goodness also is not good enough. It is binding in nature. So this is the situation in Kali Yuga. There is so much corruption among the leaders as well. And unlike Maharaja Parikshit, who is the true representative of Krishna, the current day leaders are so different. So how do we deal with this Kali Yuga situation? And Krishna has made it easy for us. He has given us the solution for the problems of Kali Yuga, even in Bhagavad Gita. He says, Chaturvarnyam maya shrishtam gunakarma vibhagasa. So by his arrangement, he has arranged this Varnashrama Dharma, where the Brahmanas who perform according to these special qualities which endears them to the Supreme Lord, and then the Kshatriyas follow and the rest of the people follow them, and then naturally the human society can be uplifted. So even though there may be so much diversions, the Daivi Varnashrama system that Krishna has provided us is the solution, samsiddhir haritoshanam. And so when Brahmanas worship Krishna, Kshatriyas follow them, and the rest of the living entities or everybody else follows the leadership properly. And when the king is a humble servant of the Supreme Lord, and the king is willing to respect Brahmana and give his life for the protection of the most insignificant of his servants, like in Maharaja Parikshit case was like that, but that's not the present day situation. But Krishna still gives us this Varnashrama system where the Brahmanas lead the society, for which the Brahmanas first need to understand the purpose of life and cultivate these qualities. So Krishna himself, we chant this verse, Namo Brahmanya Devaya, Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha, Jagat Didaya Krishnaya, Govindaya Namo Namaha. Krishna is serving Brahmana. When Sudama Brahmana entered his palace, he personally washed the Sudama's lotus feet. And today, if a sannyasi went to see a state leader or a leader of a country, they will get treated the same way or even worse than or anybody else. They have to wait in line. They have to pull their strings to get admittance in the presence of the current leadership. So the leadership has degraded in Kali Yuga because this system given to us by Krishna is completely not being followed. And even the so-called Brahmanas, as we discussed in the very beginning, who are guiding the mass of people, they don't know the purpose of the worship that they are doing. That was explained in the previous verse. And so what to speak about it? I mean, even the Brahmanas, the so-called Brahmanas, are not properly qualified or properly trained. And naturally, all these kings, there were so many kings, even in our own time period, we know all these kings were overthrown, and many exploitory kings were, thrown out of their position. And then naturally, the people started doing this democracy thing, that they will vote and make their own leaders. And even those leaders do not have a proper guidance coming from a qualified person. As a result, at present, what we are seeing is the situation in Kali Yuga, where there is nobody guiding anybody. One time someone asked Srila Prabhupada, why can we make you the king? And Prabhupada said, no, I would rather be the teacher of the king. That's what he said. So every leader should be the servant of God. And that was the example given to us by Parikshit Maharaj, Yudhishthira Maharaj, Janaka Maharaj. All these great personalities, they were representatives of the Lord, and therefore there was law and order. There was, everything was prosperous, and all of that has deteriorated because of the influence of the age of Kali. But I think I will conclude this with a very interesting paragraph from Srimad Bhagavatam, where Kapila Dev is instructing Devahuti. So we all know that we use the term Jiva for the living entity. Jiva means a living being. Jiva is a living being. But sometimes we also use the term Atma. And what is Atma? And what is the difference between Jiva and Atma? So there is a difference. So the definition for Jiva that is given in Paramatma Sandarbha is that which is intermediary, conscious in nature, unaware of himself, and tainted by attachment to the material gunas is called the Jiva. Think very carefully. That which is intermediary, conscious in nature, unaware of himself, and tainted by attachment to material gunas. Atma, that is tainted by attachment to material gunas, he is called Jiva. So sometimes we use the term Atma and Jiva interchangeably, but there is a difference between them. So Jiva is referring to the conditioned living self, conditioned living entity, whereas Atma is pure. He is not in the conditioned state. There's a difference. So unbound conditioned self, that is unbound and unconditioned self, is that is Atma. So all the Jivas are Atmas, but all the Atmas are not Jivas. In other words, all the Jivas are not all the Atmas are not conditioned. Some are conditioned, some are not. So Atma is Jiva only when it is under the influence of ignorance, or when it comes under ignorance, that is when it is a Jiva. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, King Satyavrata speaks in the 8th canto about this beginningless conditioning of the Jiva. People whose knowledge of the self has been covered by beginningless ignorance and who are tormented by the labor of material existence attain you by your causeless mercy. People whose knowledge of the self has been covered by beginningless ignorance. Knowledge of the self has been covered by beginningless ignorance, and who are tormented by the labor of material existence. Reminds you who they are? Tormented by the labor of material existence. That is each one of us without fail. Can attain you by your causeless mercy. This is Satyavrata speaking. Now, I will give a quote from Kapila Dev's instruction in canto 3, chapter 29. Here is the description Kapila Devi is giving about the evolution of consciousness of the living entity. If you pay close attention to this, you will see what the Lord is, how the Lord is guiding us. Living beings are superior to inert objects. Among them, those who breathe are superior to those who do not. Among them, those who have subconscious cognition are superior. Among them, those who have functioning motor senses are superior. Among them, those with cognitive senses, beginning with touch, are superior. Among them, those who can also taste are superior. Among them, those who can also smell are superior. And among them, those who can also hear are superior. Among them, those who can also see are superior. Among such living beings, those who have mouths with teeth are superior. Superior still are those who have legs. Those with 4 legs are superior to those with many, and those with 2 legs are superior still, especially humans. Or among human beings, the civilized are superior to the uncivilized. Among the civilized, the intellectuals is the best. Among intellectuals, those who study the Vedas are the best, and among them, those who comprehend the Vedas are even better. Among those who comprehend the Veda, those who can explain it and clarify doubts about it are the best. Better still are those who also act on this knowledge by performing their duties without selfish motive. Not even just the intellectual, not even the one who is studying the Veda, but who can perform their duties without selfish motive. Among those who do their Vedic duties without selfishness, those who are free from selfish impulses and desires are the best. Among them, the best are those who dedicate their actions, possessions, and their very self to me. Not only acting without selfishness, but they're dedicating their actions and possessions and their very self to me. Kapila Devi is telling, I don't see how anyone could be superior to that person who is dedicated to me, devoid of all materialistic pursuits and endowed with equal vision towards everything. So, according to this description of Kapila Devi, Atma, the self, manifests its consciousness to the highest extent in the form of loving devotion to Krishna. So, what does this say? This says that love for the Supreme Lord is the highest achievement of the Jiva, and that is the purpose of life. And therefore, Krishna gave us the Varnashrama system, and he gave us the guidance that one should follow, the guidance coming from the Brahmanas, for which the Brahmana should be properly trained. The Brahmana should be properly trained, and therefore, when the Brahmana is properly trained and he understands that the consciousness to the living entity whose consciousness is to the highest extent in the form of loving devotion. All these Brahmanas, if you come to that realization, if you are in that state of consciousness, such a Brahmana will be able to guide the rest of the society. Krishna gave us that system. And in the Kali Yuga, in the present day material world, it's not happening, because in the Kali Yuga, the leaders are not willing to, they don't even know there is some class of people called Brahmanas. And therefore, what can we do is, in Krishna consciousness movement, we train our Brahmanas properly. And if our Brahmanas act proper, our society, at least the group of people who are coming under that umbrella, under that jurisdiction, they will develop the right consciousness. This is Krishna's system, turning away from all the distractions that are already there, all the distractions that are created by this age of Kali, and once again bringing people's consciousness back to the right spot. And that is the only solution to the problems of Kali. And this is why Srila Prabhupada's teachings are so important for us. It is so amazingly important for us because there cannot be any other solution. There is no other way one is going to get benefited in this age of Kali. Krishna has perfectly given us the perfect solution, and Kapila Dev is telling the same thing here. And so I also touched upon the fact about actions bringing about reactions, and actions bringing about reactions is attention worthy because we do so many things without thinking. And the Brahminical culture is such that we pay attention to how we do things. And since the broad society is not going to be trained anyway, at least the group of devotees who are trained under this system, if you pay attention to the details in these matters, naturally we will have a cultured group of living beings or human beings in this Kali Yuga system, which will be the most beneficial thing for human society. With that, I stop. I think I'll just ask if anybody wants to add something or comment. Any questions or comments? Been going one time, and if not, Lingaraj Prabhu, say 10. I think we can stop this.
Okay.
Okay. Hare Krishna.